She parked her shiny white SUV right in front of my mailbox again. I could already hear her heels clicking on the pavement before I even looked up. "You can't just leave that old mailbox here," she said, crossing her arms like she owned the whole street. I stared at her, calm but tired. "It's my mailbox, Karen. On my property." She smirked. "Actually, the HOA guidelines say all mailboxes must match the neighborhood standard. Yours looks cheap." She leaned in, whispering like she was doing me a favor. "I'll have it removed by Monday." I almost laughed. "You can't remove something that isn't yours." She scoffed. "We'll see about that." And just like that, she pulled out her phone and started taking pictures, my mailbox, my driveway, even my truck. I watched her fingers tapping fast, probably sending those pictures to her little HOA group chat where gossip spreads faster than wildfire. The next morning, I walked out to find a bright orange paper taped to my mailbox. HOA notice, violation. Except, our neighborhood didn't even have an active HOA anymore. It was dissolved 2 years ago after too many complaints about unauthorized inspections. That's when I realized she wasn't acting for the HOA. She was the HOA. Self-declared, power-hungry, and apparently obsessed with my mailbox. I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to fight. But later that evening, as I sat on my porch, I saw her again, sneaking across my yard with a flashlight. She bent down and started measuring the mailbox post like she was surveying land for a construction project. That's when something inside me snapped. Not anger, just clarity. I smiled quietly and whispered to myself, "All right, Karen. You want to mess with the mailbox? Let's make it interesting." Because what she didn't know was that I already had a plan. And it buzzed. The next morning, I stood at my kitchen window sipping coffee, pretending not to notice her pacing outside. She wore that same pink blazer, the one she probably thought made her look official. And she was holding a clipboard, tapping her pen like a judge waiting to hand down a sentence. I waited. Just watched. Then it happened. She marched right up to my mailbox, yanked open the lid, and screamed. Loud. The sound cut through the whole neighborhood like a siren. "What is this?" she shouted, stumbling backward, waving her arms. A few of my neighbors peeked out from their windows as a small cloud of buzzing yellow bees swirled out of the box like angry little guards defending their home. I walked down the driveway, slow and calm, pretending to be surprised. "You okay there, Karen?" She pointed at me, face red, hair flying. You put bees in there. That's illegal. You assaulted me." I raised an eyebrow. "You opened my mailbox. On my property. Without permission. That's trespassing, Karen." Her jaw dropped. "I was conducting an HOA inspection." I laughed softly. "There's no HOA here. Remember? It was shut down 2 years ago." For a second, she froze. The look in her eyes changed from rage to confusion, maybe even fear. She looked around, realizing half the neighborhood had come out to watch. Phones were up, cameras rolling. I leaned closer and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. "You've been trespassing every single time you touched that mailbox. And today. Everyone saw it." She turned pale. But she wasn't done yet. Karen never quits. She grabbed her phone, trembling, and shouted, "I'm calling the police. Let's see what they think about your little bee trap." I smiled and nodded. Good idea. Because what she didn't know was that I'd already called them. And they were on their way. The sound of sirens started faint in the distance, growing louder as the tension on the street thickened. Karen straightened her blazer and wiped the sweat from her face, trying to pull herself together before the cops arrived. She even started rehearsing under her breath, "He attacked me. He set a trap. He's dangerous." I didn't say a word. Just leaned against my truck, arms crossed, watching her dig her own grave. When the patrol car stopped in front of my house, 2 officers stepped out, one older man, one younger woman. Karen rushed to them like she'd just escaped a horror movie. "Officers! Arrest him. He filled his mailbox with bees. They attacked me." The older officer looked at her, then at me, then at the mailbox. The bees were mostly gone now, just a few buzzing lazily in the air. He raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am. Why were you opening his mailbox?" Karen blinked fast. "Because it's against HOA code. His mailbox is a violation." The younger officer looked confused. "Ma'am, there's no active HOA here. We checked records on the way. This neighborhood dissolved the association back in 2023. That hit her like a punch. She stammered, "No, that's impossible. I have documents." "Documents you made yourself?" I said calmly. "Because I've got something too." I reached into my truck and pulled out a small camera. The kind that records automatically whenever someone comes near the driveway. I played the clip, Karen sneaking up the night before, measuring the post, taping fake notices. The footage was crystal clear. The officer watched silently, then looked back at Karen. "Ma'am. This looks like trespassing. Possibly harassment. And impersonating an HOA official is a serious issue." Karen's face went completely white. "You can't be serious. He's the one breaking laws, he put bees." The older cop cut her off. "Ma'am, the bees are on his property. Inside his own mailbox. You had no right to open it." The whole street was quiet now. You could almost feel the air shift. I leaned a little closer and said, "You should have just let the bees sleep, Karen." Karen stood frozen, clutching her phone like it could save her. But it couldn't. The cops weren't buying her story anymore. And the neighbors were still filming. Every second of her fake authority, every lie, every scream was being caught on camera. The older officer sighed. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step over here." Her voice cracked. "You can't arrest me. I was just trying to keep order." He shook his head. "No, ma'am. You were trespassing. And harassing a homeowner." When the handcuffs clicked, she went silent for the first time since I'd met her. The bees buzzed lazily around the mailbox like they knew justice had been served. A couple of my neighbors clapped softly. One even whispered, "About time." I didn't smile. Not yet. I just stood there, calm, watching her get escorted to the police car. The same woman who had threatened me, posted fake notices, and acted like queen of the street was now begging the officers to believe her. Before they drove off, she glared at me through the window. "You'll regret this." I shook my head. "No, Karen. I think I'll finally sleep fine." The car pulled away, and the street slowly went quiet again. The crowd dispersed, neighbors nodding at me like they'd just witnessed something they'd waited months for. I walked back to the mailbox, brushed a little dirt off the post, and looked at the small hive still inside. The bees were calm now, peaceful. Guardians of property and patience. I smiled and whispered, "Good work, fellas." Then I taped a new sign on the post. "Private property, do not touch." And headed inside. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I thought about how small things, a mailbox, a swarm of bees, a few seconds of truth, can expose a whole lot of fake power. And in that quiet moment, I finally understood something simple. Sometimes the sweetest justice doesn't sting at all.